Hello! Two of my cars intrinsically are linked by one particular important item, and it is one of the main factors in why I bought Project Ruby in the first place. And it is the famous CVT gearbox that most people are kind of aware about on my channel. In this car, it is an electronic version with a stepper motor, and in this, it's an old-fashioned kickdown cable. There's very few differences, mainly gearbox ribbing and a little few bits and pieces here. Namely, the dipstick that tends to break on these doesn't break on these. The drive plates do not rattle on these Fiestas, they rattle on these. In fact, many a day, MG Rover cars, so MGFs, 25s, 45s and Metros were all fitted with the ZF CVT gearbox. It's the ZF version. ZF bought the rights from Van Daunt Transmissions that designed this gearbox in the Fiesta in collaboration with Ford and Fiat, and ZF basically took the design off the shelf essentially and manufactured their own version, put their own name on it. I don't think people would agree it was a brilliant addition. There's certain things that I've already noticed about this gearbox that's actually much better than the ZF version. I think they did a cheap copy, and the drive plates, well, if they manufactured the drive plates, they did it really poorly because, as I say, people from 25s, 45s, MGF, TF community with these gearboxes, generically in the past, used to break these Fiesta CTXs for the drive plates because they didn't rattle. And that's the main thing really that links these two cars together. They both work very similarly but very differently. It's quite interesting. The exact same gearbox. Let's just have a look in Beatrix to see what the gearbox looks like for those of you who've never seen this car before. Oh, that was clumsy off me. I didn't leave it shut earlier. Right, and here we are. So we have the transmission all the way down there at the bottom, and as you can see, it has a few more gearbox ribs than before, possibly for extra cooling. There was a little bit of a change around. This gearbox was also fitted to the original Mini R50 as a CVT up until 2006, the 25, 45 and MGF TF until 2005 when the company went into liquidation or administration, I should say. We've got the tag down there. It is a ZF32A, a VT1 it's called. ZF VT1 32A. And it looks, guys, identical. We've got a yellow plug down there because we don't have a speedo cable. We have an electronic sensor down there. So we have that as a sensor. We have a stepper motor all the way at the front that you can't see. We've got an external gearbox cooler which runs very efficiently. Look at the size of that, and you think maybe that's why so many CTXs failed, because I don't think the cooling is as efficient in this car as it can be for this. So I do think that this helps the gearbox in a lot of manners, but yes, the dipsticks tend to explode on these, so we have to be very careful about how we handle our dipsticks in the MGF CVT community. I did start a Facebook group for the Fiesta people that don't know, specific to MG Rover cars with this gearbox, because just like the Fiesta community, these gearboxes have not been historically very well liked. They are quite infamous in the way that they've just basically stopped working, blown up, or just seized altogether. The truth is, I think that's mainly down to user error. You can't use these with towing. Towing is not appropriate. You will overheat the gearbox. I don't believe ZF actually manufacture them particularly well in the first place. And the second point is fluid changes. it was stipulated in the service records to change the fluid every few years, but people didn't, did they? And the problem is, when you get issues with this gearbox, a fluid change, well, forget it, too late. I think it's way too late for that. And I'm quite well versed with this gearbox now. There's just a few electrical elements to it, and it is controlled by the ECU itself. So it is a very efficient gearbox, but I'm going to find out in the future, when we get the car working, whether the non-electronic version, the early version, is any smoother or better. I've got a feeling it already is. I've got a feeling, because this can be a bit jerky at cold. There you go. A very familiar gearbox. I've not really properly spoken about this gearbox yet. We are going to look at a number of things that I've been doing. I've been doing a bit of wire brushing underneath, and I will show you one particular thing if I can find it. Nope, I've actually lost it. I don't know where that's gone now. Ah, there we go. There you are. Do you think I might need a new wire brush? In here we've been doing a little bit of grinding. Yes, I wasn't happy with the way, oh, it's starting to surface rust already. Yes, I wasn't happy with this servo. I'm going to have to blot that out, and I'm going to paint it as best as I can. I've sanded it down as much as I can and taken away all the loose sort of paint. So that'll be ready for paint. That'll be an interesting masking up job in situ. Like I've said to people in the past, particularly Ford Focus Mark 1 enthusiasts, painting things in situ is an utter pain. I don't really want to go about painting this. I know we've got the scabs in there. I might have to do something about that. Just a few that I might need to go and treat. But the truth is, these sort of scabs, I'm just going to clean them. Because believe you me, half of this is dirt, not rust. So I'm just going to polish them and clean it to reduce its effect, because I'm not respraying the whole cross member. The problem is, you start respraying things like that, you don't know when to stop. But do excuse me, there seems to be all the manner of builders everywhere. Is that really necessary? Oh, so I do apologise for the noise again. I live on a main road, if you don't know. Oh my goodness me, look at that. I've got blooming surface rust. I've got to suck this out somehow. It's blooming heck. There's a bit of excess I didn't want to stay there. I'm going to give that inlet manifold a bit of a clean as well. But overall, it's starting to clean up really well. I've just started making a bit of a clean up of the backside. It's looking really, really good. MG Rover enthusiasts, we have a dipstick. A small dipstick that doesn't disintegrate. It is made of plastic, but it's high quality. Now, before we move on, I have been asked about these mountings since that I've actually taken the cross member off the back and the front, changed the mounts. I can't see any problem with these. I've got to be honest with you. There's the tiniest bit of movement, but that's kind of what's allowed with that sort of mounting. So I don't really see anything that really alarms me. And secondly, I'm not being funny. I am not being hasty in throwing away the original mountings when A, you cannot get, as far as I'm concerned, you cannot get genuine ones for love nor money. And secondly, aftermarket ones, well, aftermarket mounts can be a bit of a compromise. The only reason I'd replace the original mountings with aftermarket ones is when you know categorically they are shot, and these aren't shot. It's the truth. You're not going to be replacing them with like for like. You're going to be replacing them with a good mounting for now, but in a couple of years down the line, what's it going to be like? Rubber products are the worst thing when it comes to cars this age, because they just don't seem to last, whether it's hoses or mounts. So yeah, something to be aware of about there. But we can actually see this now, and then because we're going to talk about the gearbox today, just going to move these pipes. By the way, guys, I've removed both of the fuel hoses. I've removed both of the heater hoses just to allow me a bit of access around here, and it was a simple case because they'd virtually been removed anyway. But the fuel pipes, they took a lot of doing to get off. I'm going to have to do some measurements on these pipes, because what I want is to get the diameter of these pipes. The fuel, the carburetor is the bigger one, and the return line is the smaller one in my hand here. Now I'm just going to put them in this plastic. They should be, there we go, there you go. They're nicely situated now. It took some effort to get them out because everything was in the way, including the gas pedal. Now the gas pedal goes through here into this bracket, and then obviously we've got the carb cable and then the kick down cable. And essentially, like I've said before, when you press the gas, it turns the whole thing, which operates this one and this one. They all work interchangeably. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see any cause of concern about why this would have gone out of situ. I mean, the only thing I can do is to take the carburetor cable out of its groove, take it out of the cam, just take it out, you know, the little peg, just take it out the cam, and then basically put my foot to the floor a few times just to reset the cable, and then put it back in. That's a simple way of doing it, just to make sure that the cable is basically doing what it should be doing. There is a simple test actually to make sure that any free movement of the gas pedal is resulting in complete movement of the carburetor cable. There is a few ways of doing that. Anyway, let's get underneath, but first we need a magnetic tray. I've removed the drain pan because we're going to need that for the gearbox, and we're already getting oil spots on that cardboard. Unbelievable. The jack is still in place, but we removed the axle stand because we don't need that. Don't know what that's like that now. Okay, and yeah, we're ready to go. And there's a couple of pieces. We can actually tidy this sump pan up, but as you saw at the bottom end of Beatrix, it's a very familiar sight to most of you. And we have the oil drain pan at the back, the drain plug at the back, H7, which I've already cracked off because this is something I didn't do on Beatrix. I couldn't get it off on Beatrix, but the truth is I was going to drop the pan anyway, but it's nice to take the fluid out and then drop the pan, because then it's not so much of a mess. So we have I recommend an impact H7, because a normal H7, you're joking. This is a 1/2 inch. I could use my 1/2 inch ratchet with this, but the truth is it's not too bad really. I can torque this up properly, but really you don't need to. And then I've got my cordless electric ratchet, because there's so many bolts. We're going to crack them off by hand, and then we're going to whiz it out. But straight away, yeah, we're going to whiz this out. So if I get the drain pan, just get it under there. Well, I might have to move this out the way. Excuse me, buddy. You're set. Just for the moment. Right, make sure it is completely underneath, and then we're just going to go for it. Make sure it goes the right way, Andrew. There we go. Excuse me. Oh, I can smell that. Excuse me. It's not gone brown. Yep, it smells like automatic transmission fluid. I keep smelling this. This is the 3rd time I've done a change on this gearbox. Unbelievable. Now, I have foreseen a bit of a problem here that I didn't foresee before, but there's no way I can get this gearbox pan off without bloody removing this mounting. Oh God. So we've got 1, 2, 3 bolts here that I've got to take out. Oh God. Right, we'll leave that to continually drip. There's about 3.5 litres in there, which is ridiculous, because the gearbox in Beatrix, that takes over 4.5 to 5 litres after a drain. That's ridiculous. I mean, look at this. There's not a lot in there. That's ridiculous. Right, we're going to let that drain, and we're going to deal with this. I should have thought about this before. Right, so I'm going to use my impact gun again with a 17 to get them off, and a universal joint because it's in a bit of an awkward position here, and I just don't want to take chances. So let's try and get the middle. Let's try and get the middle one, shall we? Make sure it's square on. Does anyone want to know? Try the wow, looks like I've got to get the blooming big boy out. This is ridiculous. Sometimes you just need the big boys. Come on. Right, try again. Well, that was easy enough. There we go. With a big bolt out. And the top one. There we go. Done. Milwaukee wins the day. Bolt out, bracket off. I'll clean that up. Right, done. I love this thing. I really do. It cost me a good deal of money a couple of years ago. I only bought this because I needed to do a timing belt change on the Focus, and the only thing stopping me from doing the job was getting that damn crankshaft pulley bolt out. They are absolutely gun to the hilt, and I think this was probably one of the few guns that are powerful enough to be able to do it at home. This goes up to something like 1850 Newton meters. That's ridiculous, and you can still get this. It's the M18. I honestly, like with the battery and charger, we're looking at about 360, 370, and probably a bit more these days. I'd say that will save you more than, let's say, £400 over the years. Trust me, it's a game changer. Right, so we're still kind of dripping a little bit, but yeah, smells a bit oily. Right, so I suppose I'm just going to go round now and crack all these bolts off. Come on. Just crack all these off. Just crack them off at this stage. Oh, that was very loose. Now, that was very loose. This one, yeah, it's all right. You might be going to sleep by the time I've got round to all these. Not as bad as some gearboxes, I'll tell you that. Some have so many bolts, even the person doing it goes to sleep. Not a lot of these are quite tight. They're actually quite loose, some of them. Okay, then there's one. Okay, if I just set this, have I got it? Nope, that's Titan, Andrew. That's Titan. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Off we go. These are just brilliant things. Don't lose any of these bolts. Before I finish, the one thing I would note is that every single Mark III Fiesta buyer's guide out there will tell you to avoid the CTX models, these gearboxes, right? And apparently they suffer from oil leaks. I've never known any variation of this gearbox to suffer oil leaks ever, whether from the sump. I've never known that. All I've seen is that these gearboxes can get covered in crap from rocker cover gaskets from the engine, whether that's this engine or a K series or the Fiat fire engine that was fitted to this, because obviously these went in Fiat Uno and Pandas.
back in the day as the selector gearbox. I think that gearbox has a couple more sensors than this. They marketed the gearbox as an electronic transmission, so Fiat were definitely pushing the limits with this gearbox in terms of marketing, but I've never known them to leak oil. The only failure that I've heard of is you got the primary drum cover, you got the secondary drum cover at the top here. Now apparently there could be a hairline crack in the casing because this is under extreme pressure, and they can leak from the top down. But in terms of this gearbox, Beatrix, Milo, the Rover 45 CVT, if you've been watching them videos, probably not. You know, none of them leak. None of these gearboxes absolutely leak. In fact, Milo is actually missing one of the nuts off the sump. I don't know why. Maybe someone's been in there before, but one of them's missing, and it still doesn't leak. You know what I mean? So I don't understand why people say these things. I just think half the time when people say, oh, just avoid the CTX, avoid the CVT at all costs, it leaks oil, they're dreadful to drive. Do you know what? That's lazy journalism, because I bet you half the people that say this have never actually driven a CTX or CVT in their life. They just copy and paste the old CVT, they drone, they groan, and they're not very nice to drive. Well, you've never driven one. How the bloody hell would you know? These are amazing gearboxes, and I'm willing to prove that to a whole new set of people now. So I thought I'd just have a little bit of a rant there, because often this is just off. There's no basis for this argument. Right, that is the last bolt. Is it going to smash into the oil? For those of you who've watched my Project Beatrix videos, I think you remember when my pan pretty much splashed everywhere with the fluid inside it because I couldn't take the drain plug out. Right, now there's really no way of doing this, but this gearbox sump has never been off before. So I'm going to remove this out the way, because quite frankly I don't want a mess. I'm going to put the oil pan oil plug back in just for now. Okay, so it doesn't continue leaking oil everywhere. Okay, now I'm going to get a hammer to see whether it will dislodge it. So, hammer, tap. My goodness me, this is stuck. I think the advantage last time was the fact that there was fluid inside here, so there was weight. My God, this has never been off in a millennia. Wow, 34 years to be exact. Let's keep giving it some taps. Ooh. Yeah, we've got it. We got it. Oh, that's very different. That is very, very different to what I'm used to. Now, we've got something very different here. Now, this will tell you what the differences are between the gearboxes. Now, this looks like a cork gasket. I'm going to leave that in place because my experience tells me to leave it. Now, this is a magnet. Quite a big magnet. So, in the Rover versions, the ZF versions, it would be a ring magnet, but it's a fair bit of, there is wear, and that's normal for a CVT, because naturally this is what you really should expect. I'm just going to put that in there for a split second. Oh, God, it's everywhere. But no, there's nothing different about that, just the magnet's a different size. But it's what's up in here which is a bit different. That filter is very, very small, and it's held in with a bolt. So this is where it differs from the ZF versions. That valve block is very, very different, and you can see all the different valves sticking out of the block. Let's go and have a closer look. So in this gearbox, as I say, what I've been used to in the Rover ZF versions is a stepper motor that goes through here. There's some wiring to a motor that pushes on this valve, which is in the same place, by the way. This is the primary valve. We've got a primary valve and we've got a secondary valve. But basically, if I just put a torch at the end here, you see this here? That throttle cable, the kick down cable that goes down here, goes into the back round here, and that pulls this cam. So you've got one, so you've got a little you've got a cam that pushes on this valve inside here. This is the throttle valve, and then there's another cam that links off that cable as well, leads to the primary valve. Very complicated, but basically the primary valve controls the primary drum and the secondary valve controls the secondary drum. The secondary drum is what gives power to the final drive. It is a very complicated gearbox in the way it works. I will cover it in a much more detailed episode, but essentially, yeah, it's just mechanical instead of, yeah, not. Now, this little thread here, do not touch that. Don't touch that, Andrew, because that is the setting for the low range braking gear quadrant. So the L in the car is for engine braking. You do not mess with that because there is no way of getting the setting back. It is factory fitted and it's just impossible to get the right setting. Apparently you'd shred your gearbox, but I'm telling you what, it's not even dirty in here. It is so clean. I mean, you go back there, look at that gearbox casing, it's just clean. So you've got the dipstick here as well, but yep, absolutely. Now obviously the selector cable that goes underneath the back of the car in through the middle of the footwell, it's quite a simple thing, and it acts on a shift lever that's underneath this tiny filter. My God, that is tiny. So it's held in with, I suspect, another 10mm bolt. So I'll go and get my spanner. Don't lose that screw in the pan, Andrew, you silly boy. Right, okay, it's probably the same size as the rest of them. Looks like it anyway. Right, now my experience is just you've got to twiddle. That's where the filter goes on, and just twiddle. Just gentle. That's it, it's coming out. There we go, done. That is coming straight from the oil pump at the back of the gearbox. The oil pump, by the way, is just behind that cover. There we go. A very different construction. Now, these filters, as you can imagine with CTXs, just like the MG Rover ZF step speed gearbox equivalent, you can't get the filters for them. So you just have to put the filter back in and have some filtering properties rather than none. And I suspect that these, by the way, unlike Rover, who specified the fluid should be, the CVT fluid should be changed every couple of years, there isn't actually anything in the Ford manual about this. Now, I've got a manual for this car that I'm going to show you in another episode, but it basically doesn't say that the gearbox fluid should be changed. In fact, the only time the fluid should be changed is when the gearbox is replaced or exchanged under warranty because of a gearbox failure. That's it. It's just to refill a new gearbox. So that probably explains why so many of these have packed up, because you do need to change the fluid. It's not a lifetime fluid, and particularly with a gearbox like this, you know, it's just as it is. I've just cleaned that, but I'll put that in there nevertheless. But I'll let that continually drain out in there. Look at that on the back. Look at all those magnets on the back side. Is that what the filter is? So you've got some sort of filtering property there, and you've got mini magnets inside the filter. And we do have a parts number. So I've got some research to do. gearbox, and you've got the valve sticking out at the end. Now, on this side, the selector lever side, we have the selector fork. Now, at the back of the gearbox, as you can almost see, is where the end of my torch is. That is the start inhibitor switch, which the actual selector mechanism is pushing against now because we're in park. So that means the car won't start. That start inhibitor will cut power going to the starter motor. It's as simple as that. And it's just a simple pull mechanism, really. There isn't really much to it. But as I say, I could decide to take this off. But the truth is, it is a bit of a faff. And trust me, you don't want to be getting in for that. What I'm going to be doing is just leaving this to drain completely. I don't feel there's any need to do anything else. I mean, we can put the torch up there. Yeah, that obviously goes up to the oil pump itself, which is just here. There is something called a pitot chamber inside there, which delivers the right amount of hydraulic pressure to the primary and secondary valves at any one time. But all rather good. I'm going to leave that there because it just needs to drip. Yeah. And I can honestly say this has been the cleanest gearbox fluid change ever, because I've come a bit more prepared this time. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there to drip. Right. Before we go, the only electrical item on this gearbox is this starter inhibitor switch at the back. And literally all you need to do, because there's been a bit of water around here, I've done a bit of degreasing around here. As you can see, it's all nice and clean with the mount and everything. What I would do, because it does get rather dirty at the back as usual, what you do is you just twist this boot off, just as gentle as you possibly can. There you go. And you just want to make sure that it is a clean connection. That's not very clean. So I'm just going to get my can of contact cleaner and just drain the plug. There you go. It is a bit of a common fault, especially on the MG Rover gearboxes, that the inhibitor switch can cause quite a few problems. So it is always worthwhile just to clean this and this together. Right, that's all clean now, all clean around there. It goes without saying though, that start inhibitor also operates the reverse lights on the automatic models, so bear with. But I've just had a bit of a clean around. As I say, the selector cable goes up there towards the middle of the car. I've just pulled the boot back and looks rather good in here. I might give that a bit of a clean, but to be fair, it's fine. There's just a bit of a boot that goes over the actual selector lever, and I've just given that a bit of a clean up inside here, because it does get awfully grubby inside here, and you just want to make sure that everything is nicely free and flowing. And that's all good. And now I can put this back underneath where it should be, and I'm going to leave that to drain now. Fantastic.
Now this was intended to be a shorter episode, but I find that rather fascinating. So the valve blocks, like I thought, are the unique thing. I suspect that the valve block in the Fiat Selector versions is also slightly different. They're all slightly different to each other. The actual gearbox, the actual design of the gearbox is practically identical between Ford's, Fiat and Rover products, MG Rover products. The difference is the valve block. That valve block, that looks a lot stronger and much more reinforced than the valve blocks in the MG Rover versions. If you don't know what they look like, just go to one of Milo's episodes. So Rover 45 Milo, it should be under there under CVT repairs, or Project Beatrix, really early on when I take the sump off that car. Well, I say take the sump off. I couldn't get I couldn't get the drain plug off, and then I took all the bolts out, left it with the drain pan underneath, couldn't get it off. Went into the house to get a hammer and chisel. As I say, that's why I've got the hammer here today with me, instead of going into the house and then basically the same thing happening, which was the sound of the pan just dropping while I was in the house. Yeah, so it made quite an awful mess, and I'm glad that went without a problem. But it's quite fascinating. I mean, even things like just this filter. This filter is covered in internal magnets. Interesting. I'm going to have a look at the parts number to see if there's anything that comes up, but I suspect not. It would just be a case of reuse the filter. I'd rather there be some filtering properties than not, and it actually doesn't look too bad. Most of the actual wear has gone onto that big magnet in the sump. As I say, that amount of wear on a CVT this mileage is kind of ideal, because this has done almost 50,000 miles. Beatrix had done just over 50, almost going on for 51,000 miles. So there's not much difference between the two gearboxes, and the sort of wear that I saw on Beatrix's magnet is very similar to this. CVTs, they are high internal friction gearboxes, and I'm not being funny, with the amount of wear that you generally see on them, you need to change the fluid. I'd ignore the manufacturer. It's Ford 166H automatic transmission fluid, and that is it. Anyway, I'm going to leave this episode here. I'm just going to show you round the car now to show you what I've been doing on the underside. It isn't much, trust me. So in between sort of videoing and editing and uploading, I've just been doing a bit of wire brushing. Yes. Well, this is the main bit that I've done. I've just gone over the exhaust as well, just to make sure that that's free from aluminium oxide, but there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. I mean, we've got this area down here that I just peeled it away a little bit. There's nothing. It's solid. It's completely and utterly solid. But we found a hole. Now, I went down that side of the car as well. There's just nothing on that side. Again, it's just mainly around here. But, hello. Yes, we have a hole. But it's not gone all the way through. It's like in two pieces. Now, I might actually take the carpet up on the inside just to find out exactly what's going on the other side. But I think personally, rust converter, I have ground it back to metal, as you can see, a bit of rust converter, and possibly a bit of filler over that, because I'm not being funny, I'm not taking it to a body shop for that. You have got to be joking. No, I'm just going to make sure that it's good on the other side, and as long as all the metal it's gone back to good clean metal and rust killed, there shouldn't be any reason for me to fill that, and it will never come back. There's no evidence that anything is going on this side either. I mean, look at the sill, guys. I'm just going to take a few of these out and probably stone chip all the way down here, but this is the original sill. Like, there's just nothing. I can take you down here. This is the bit where I'm going to have to go over this area just a little bit more. So I'm just sliding down for you. Even these void bushes, I think these bushes are being changed. This is the only bush on this rear suspension, because it's just a twist beam. That's it. I mean, take you further back here. Oh, excuse me. Just going to slide down for you. But yeah, literally, I've just got to do a bit of wire brushing behind there. Probably take the handbrake cable off. But look, I've gone over the entire rear beam, and it took me about half an hour. It's just absolutely nothing. The drum back plates look a bit crusty, but I'll take the wheels off and have a good go over them. But literally, that's it. If I just take you round here, this is what I've been doing. I mean, this tray has come up well as well. I mean, look at it. I've ground it back. It's just nothing. Even, I tell you what, the fuel tank is well protected. That's the only bit of rust on that steel fuel tank. So Ford obviously did something that MG Rover didn't want to do, because Beatrix's fuel tank was dreadful when I first bought the car. I've gone over the back plate a little bit, but truth be told, there's just nothing. The exhaust needs a bit of a clean up. Oh, by the way, guys, this back box has been replaced. Look at that clamp. That wouldn't have been an original fitment.
Now, unless there was a problem and it was there because maybe there was a crack or something, this back box is certainly not the original, and it is starting to go a little bit at the bottom there. I am kind of aware about that, but it hasn't actually gone all the way through, but it's just a bit thin there, so it's not as good as the originals. The hangers, I'm going to have a look at the exhaust hangers, because they're all kind of just old, but they're okay, they're hanging together. But it's just nothing. But I'm sure those bushes, those train arm, well, we call them void bushes, they're not really train arm bushes, but I think they've been pressed out already. But they're very different to Mark IV bushes. But there's really nothing to see under here. I mean, even the fuel pipes, I mean, obviously you got the filler pipes going down there, and you got a little rubber hose that goes, well, basically that one goes straight into the tank, which is feeder. That one is the top breather hose. I don't think I need to change that hose, because rarely will petrol touch that hose. I'm going to have a look at it nevertheless, but no, not at all. And then if we come round to this side, I mean, this bit really is the worst bit, but it's not, it's solid. It's just solid. Yeah, a bit at the end there, but as I say, this little bit of scabbiness here, yeah, I might have to do something about that. I've caught that just in time. It hasn't gone through. What I am going to do, I'm just going to highlight all this. Now, what we have here is the feed. I've just taken them off the lines. So we got the look at the brake pipe. That's the brake pipe up there. It's still green. There's nothing wrong with it. Then you got the handbrake and you got the fuel pipes. Now the fuel pipes go from the back of the tank. There's some sort of plastic. These are plastic. These are like plastic reinforced hoses, and then it goes into two braided hoses. I've got to change these. These are braided rubber hoses, and then they go into the steel lines that go up the top. So we got sort of like reinforced hoses, then rubber hoses, flexible hoses, and then into the steelies. I don't understand that. I really don't understand that personally, but those two hoses have got to be changed, so I've got to do some measuring and get them off, so that's going to be a fun job. But overall, there's just nothing. I mean, there's a little bit more surface rust on this side, but on the inside there's no holes. There's no holes, and that's just dirt up there. It's not rust, by the way, that's just dirt. So really the only hole we found is on that side, and it's not really a proper hole. But look at them. Look at the pipes. You can see all the pipes, brake pipes, fuel pipes. There's nothing wrong with this. I've just done the entire exhaust as well, just wire brush that down. I mean, there's just nothing. I can't really talk about anything. Even the fuel tank looks good in patches. I've just wire brushed it down. This is going to be painted. This is just going to be painted. I mean, there's just nothing to it. Nothing. It's a good twist beam. Well, I think the Mark III was the first one to use a twist beam, because the Mark I and Mark II used a dead beam, but this allows a form of twist. These bushes do twist a little bit, and this tubular steel design was used in a lot of cars. It's still done today. The twist beam suspension is really a good way of getting decent handling from, you know, an average everyday car, really. So guys, that's it. I can't show you anything else because there's nothing else to show you. That's how solid this car is. I've had a go at the cross member underneath as well, and there's just nothing. I just turn the camera back round. You know, I've just been down this earlier, and it just there's just nothing. I just need to do a bit of rust converting here and there. Just nothing, guys, nothing. So, you know, I've been cleaning. I've done a load of degreasing around the back of the block. I mean, you can see, I mean, look at that. You can see everything now. It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, so that oil pressure switch has been changed. But it's just nice now. Yeah, it's really, really nice and dry. Just continue that way. As far as the engine bay is concerned,
The next video I'm going to do a bit of painting off camera, guys, because I'm just going to put a bit of zinc primer down. I'm going to have to just mask all around that. It's going to be an absolute pain, but it's got to be done. The next thing I've got to do is suck all this blooming water out, but also preparations for the timing belt. We've got to drop that mounting, so I suspect, as I say, I'm going to put some more plus gas on that bolt. So yes, we're going to clean all around here. I haven't managed to get around to all this bit because of all the timing belt cover. I can take the cover off, to be fair. It's only 2 bolts actually that hold it on. Yeah, there's a top bit and then there's a lower bit. What I love about the CVH is the fact that it just looks like when they designed the engine, they thought, oh dear, we've got to cover the belt. Let's just stick this box at the end. This timing belt cover looks like it was, it's not integral. It doesn't look very integral to the engine. It just looks like they've added a box on at the end just to cover it up. And that's, I think, what it would summarise engines from this age. Just put a box over it and cover it up. But in later engines like, I don't know, the K series and the Ford Sigma engines of that time, they sort of made this timing belt cover integral with the rest of the engine. But the alternator's going to come off completely. We had to take this fan. I've got to be honest, I can take this. The amount of deflection on this fan belt is ridiculous. It's supposed to be like 4mm under average thumb pressure. No, we got an old-fashioned alternator. I say old-fashioned because the alternator, it's actually got a fan for the alternator, because back in the day, I mean, you see this design, it's not actually ribbed, or it's just enclosed. So the only way of getting cold air in is a little fan on front of the alternator, which is quite fascinating. Nowadays they don't have fans now, they just have an open design where it's kind of, the air can get in there. So yeah, it's a bit of an interesting design really, but that will be coming off, and we'll start getting a few bits and pieces off. We get that under tray off as well. But I like the fact I've got an old-fashioned fan belt. Some models got the multi-ribbed serpentine belt, but I don't have a few things on this car. Namely, it is just a basic. We've got no power steering for a start. I think if you had power steering, you got a multi-rib belt, but because this is an early Mark III, you don't have power steering, so they gave you a tiny little old-fashioned fan belt. Fantastic, I love these things, although they do tend to fly off. I think there's many stories of back in the day, and well, one person told me in particular, when he and his girlfriend were courting, he used to have an Escort with a CVH with one of these belts, and frequently he would have to make sure his girlfriend took some spare clothing materials with her. So if this fan belt ever did snap, and it did snap the once when they went down the pub, he would use that piece of material to get them home. I'm sure you've got plenty of stories about ridiculous fan belts. There is a reason why these fan belts went the way of the wind. They're just not very good. They're constantly slipping. But from Project Ruby and Project Beatrix, you take care.